Those are the headlines. Emma James is with us in the studio now for MediaWatch. It's good to see you, Emma. And of course, you've been looking at all the reaction to the shocks and surprises in British politics. Boris Johnson, the man who persuaded his country to leave the European Union, has decided he doesn't want to be the man to do the job.
Yes, absolutely. It is astounding stuff. Political turmoil just doesn't seem to be enough to describe what is going on right now in the UK when it comes to its politics. It's more of a seething cauldron of backstabbing and hatred. And as you can see here, the word Brexit seems to be gathering pace online. In the wake of Brexit, we now have Boris's exit. This picture was actually created back in May when people were saying that if the UK voted to remain in the EU, he should get out of the United Kingdom. But Brexit looks like it might be something that's here to stay, at least for the time being. A lot of people poking fun at what he has done. It does seem bizarre to get your own way. You get the result you're campaigning for. And as it says here, Boris Johnson executes his meticulously planned political strategy, destroying all in his wake. Boris Johnson, when he realised the level of responsibility to lead Britain post-Brexit with...
Because he looked terrified the day of the result, didn't he?
He did look terrified. There were lots of memes with him alongside Michael Gove saying, no, you touch it, no, you touched it last.
Let's take back control, no, you take it.
Because they didn't look happy at all.
They didn't look like winners.
No, absolutely. The only person who looked like someone who'd won something was Nigel Farage. Very much the Leave campaign on the other side of the fence, not members of UKIP, kept very, very quiet in those first few hours. And then when they did arrive, they looked very glum indeed. Another one of these little memes, the best representation of Boris Johnson I've seen yet. Small child runs into the room, looks horrified, and runs straight back out again. Now, the way in which this has been unfolding, it has been so rapid that even the journalists in the UK are struggling to keep up with it all. Matt Barbette from Channel 5 says they say a week is a long time in politics, but it feels like a decade's worth has happened over the last 7 days.
Because the entire political class has been shaken up, hasn't it? You don't have any of the political leaders that we had.
It is like history's been rewritten in the blink of an eye. It is very, very strange. Strange times indeed in the United Kingdom right now. The Independent's John Rentoul had to do a rather quick correction of his earlier column from today. As you can see here, he's just basically scribbled on it in red. The original headline, Tory leadership polls show that Theresa May is ahead, but Boris Johnson is the credible choice. He changed it to Boris Johnson is finished. And the journalists really struggling to keep up with it. But this is one of my favourite images of the day. You've got a BBC reporter in the foreground, and behind him is Sam Coates of The Times. I don't know if you can make out the look on his face there. That's coming out of that press conference with Boris Johnson, where he announced that he would not be standing. You can see it came as something of a shock to him.
Did you see the Conservative MPs, Nadine Dorries sitting at the front? They looked really shocked as well. I mean, these are Westminster veterans, and they really can't believe what's going on.
Absolutely. Not everyone, though, thinks that he is going to be gone for now.
Yeah, I was going to say, what next for Bojo?
Well, exactly. If you listen to Dimi Rader, who is a journalist, he says now that we've stopped laughing, Boris isn't abandoning the plan to become Prime Minister. He's skipping a turn. He says the next Prime Minister will have the worst job since 1945, and I think he's probably right there. What he goes on to say is this, that Boris can come skipping back like the world's jolliest pyromaniac and either take credit for post-Brexit, the success, or vow to fix it if it fails. Looking elsewhere, though, Michael Heseltine certainly feels that Boris Johnson has burned his bridges here. He's likened him to a general who abandons the battlefield at the first sound of fire. He said, I've never seen anything like it. He's ripped the Tory party apart. He has created the greatest constitutional crisis in peacetime in my life. Now, Michael Heseltine, for those of you who aren't familiar with him...
he can talk.
Well, quite possibly, but he is one of those rare political beasts who I think is respected across the board, whether or not people necessarily agree with everything that he stands for. But he certainly is very much a Conservative Party grandee, and his words will carry some weight. The blame for this mess, though, by Boris Johnson's father is being placed very
because
squarely on Michael Gove.
Boris Johnson's dad was a Remainer, so Boris Johnson
Yes.
didn't even convince his own father, Stanley Johnson. Right?
Stanley Johnson was campaigning for Remain. Having not won that, he then went on to say that he would support his son in his bid to become the next Prime Minister, the next leader of the Conservative Party. But what he now says is that Michael Gove, who should have been Boris Johnson's running mate and essentially was running his campaign, he's likened him to the assassins who killed Julius Caesar. A little hint of drama there, which you might come to expect from the Johnson family. He's not the only one feeling betrayed, though. If we take a look at this quote from Sam Coates of The Times, he said one of Boris Johnson's campaign team has lashed out to say feelings running high is an understatement. And the quote from the particular campaign
You can't
person
say
there,
that on air.
It's disappeared, actually, so that's not terribly helpful. Anyway,
Right.
not too happy.
Let's quickly talk about Theresa May, because she is now seen as the front runner, the current Home Secretary or Interior Minister. She doesn't seem to be setting the world on fire so far, though.
No, absolutely. And you could say that it's not unexpected. If we take a look at The Economist's sort of sum up of who is in the running to lead both parties in the UK, because of course there's a leadership competition on both sides of the political fence, they describe Theresa May as Eurosceptic, Remainer, tough on immigration. But they say she's competent and serious, but essentially dull. Looking elsewhere, she does seem to be living up to her serious billing by having a go at Boris Johnson by saying what happens in government isn't a game. One interesting development today, though, is that she has actually thrown into the mix in terms of what could happen at the right of EU migrants currently in the UK to stay here. Now, this is pretty much a seismic decision by her. As Owen Jones, the Guardian journalist, points out, we are faced with the threat of the repatriation of people who live in the United Kingdom.
We're talking about deportations.
He calls it absolutely chilling.
Really scary stuff. All right, Emma, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much. Emma James there with Media Watch. Well, moving on